Good morning and a happy Monday to you all. I hope you're having a good day and I hope you had a great weekend. Today we're going to be doing some machine embroidery, some fun machine embroidery, and this video is geared toward beginners. So those of you who have been doing machine embroidery for a while are going to find this probably boring, but I will try to add some tips and tricks as we go along that might be interesting to everybody. This is the pattern I'm going to be making today. We've got Halloween coming up here pretty soon, and I'm going to make a little in the hoop project that is a coffee cup cozy. And my pattern, so if you want to make one too, I am not endorsed by this company or gifted anything or paid anything, nothing. I just happened to purchase this design, and it's from a little shop on Etsy called Touching Embroidery. So if you go there and you want to purchase this design, you'll find it there on their shop. And I'm going to make mine kind of toward the Halloween holiday, and I'm going to show you a little trick so that you don't have to turn this right side out when you're all done. I'll show you a little trick on that. This was the first one I made, and you can see this one I did turn it right side out. The problem with it is that this little space right here is the only opening the pattern gives you to turn this entire thing right side out. And it's a little much. If you used only fabric and a really thin fleece, which the fabric does call for fleece, you might be able to do it a lot easier. But I used cork. I wanted to use cork on the outside. I liked the look of it for this particular design. And I just used fabric on the back, and it just didn't work well at all. This is the second one that I made. This one has cork on the front and the back. I didn't have to turn it right side out. There's no opening. And it turned out really, really cute. And I've got a pint jar here that I think I'm going to fill up. I know this is a coffee cup cozy, but I think I'm going to fill this jar up with candy corn or something wrapped in orange wrappers, and put the top on it and gift it to a friend who can just set this out and have candy sitting out in her little cute little jar with this cover on it. I could see you could stack cookies in here. You could put little party favors in it and give it like this. Just surprise somebody, because these little things are really, really quick and easy to make. This is the third one I made. I made it just like this one, and I think I've got it worked out now to where everything is just gonna look pretty neat. And so that's what we're going to do today. You'll find in your local quilt shop, many local quilt shops are starting to carry cork now, and you can get it in different colors, you can get it in patterns, florals, I mean, whatever you can think of, you can get it in cork. And this was the cork I used for these guys, and it has a little silver fleck in it, which was kind of cool. And I've just laid out a couple different colors of cork. If you're a bag maker like me, you're always going to have scraps of cork, and you don't need very much. This is a great project to use up cork scraps. Or vinyl. You could even use vinyl. This is the cork I'm going to use today, and it is a beautiful purple, deep purple. And I've picked out the threads that I think I'm going to use. I have used this on the black, and I like it, but it's a little clashy with this purple, so I'm going to take that one away, and I'm going to use this one, this shade of orange. This is Hugo's Amazing Tape, and I put it around my spools when I have them in the drawer when they're stored so that I don't get strings all over everywhere, threads. So this is the orange I'm going to use, and my whole design will be in this color. And my top stitching that I'm going to do around the outside, which I'm going to show you how to cheat and do that with your design, is going to be this lavender purple. And then I'm going to find some really neat buttons to put on here, and I'll find some fold over elastic. This is what I've used here, is fold over elastic. The pattern calls for 1/4 inch black elastic, but I used fold over. I kind of like it, and it's got enough give to it that you can either, like this is a little larger maybe than what a coffee cup would be, and you can put it on this or a coffee cup or a mug, and so you've got some options if you use the fold over elastic, and then just any kind of neat buttons that you can find. So we're going to need about a couple pieces that are 5 by maybe 7, 8, 9 inches long. How long is this? Let's see. This is 9 inches. So let's call it 10 inches, and we'll need about 4. So 4 by 10, and you'll need 2 pieces of your cork, 4 by 10. You're going to need some fleece, and we only need 1 layer of the fleece, so we'll cut a 4 by 10 piece of fleece, and our pattern. And I'm going to be using my Bernina 770 and my large oval hoop. You can see that here. 1 layer of tearaway stabilizer. Usually I use 2, and almost always in whatever embroidery project you're doing you should use 2 layers of stabilizer, but I'm going to try to sneak away with just 1 today, because this fleece is really narrow. It's only about 1/8 of an inch, really skinny, and I think that and my stabilizer will be enough. I like the way these feel, and I think 2 layers of stabilizer would probably make them too hard to curl around your coffee cup comfortably. And when you have a design that you're going to do, and this is an in the hoop project, and it is not applique, but it works kind of like applique in that we are going to be stitching placement lines and tack downs, and we're going to be doing some trimming. It's kind of like applique. And when you get this pattern, if you get this pattern or any in the hoop pattern, when you download them, you're going to find in your zipped folder that somewhere in there is a PDF for you to print off. And the PDF is going to give you, like this just has 2 colors, but if you had some kind of pattern or design that had multiple colors, you would see them here, and it will give you just each step where the colors change or something else is going to be done, and the machine stops and you have to do something and then go again. And this PDF that came with this is just excellent. It even has pictures, and like here is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you'll just follow this through until you get to step 8. And we're not going to do step 8, 9, or 10, 11, or 12. We are going to get up to step 7, and I'm going to show you a little trick how to make your little coffee cup cozy double-sided, and you don't have to turn it right side out. So let's get let's get our stabilizer hooped up. And you guys have seen me do this many times. There are lots and lots of videos on my YouTube channel and in our group. If you go to the top of the group page, you click on either one, topics or guides, and open those up, and you'll find there's tons of tutorials in there, and from me and Jeremy on the group. So I know there's probably many different ways to hoop, and I always do it this way, and this is the way I've done it in all my videos, and that's how I encourage you to do it. Is I put my stabilizer and my inner hoop in at the bottom, and I work my way up to the top of the hoop and slip it down in. And a little trick that I always use is the screwdriver that came with my 97D foot. It has a little end on it, and it's kind of squishy. I've showed you this a lot. And you can put that on the end of your screw for your hoop and tighten your hoop down. So tightening a hoop, there's kind of a little, I don't know, you kind of have to get a feel for it. You always, of course, want to hoop on a flat surface. And once you get your stabilizer in here, you're going to burp the hoop, and you'll watch, you'll see a little bit come out on the back side. There, did you see it? And here's another view of it. I'm pushing the inner hoop with my thumbs, and I'm pushing it to the back, and it's called burping the hoop. So you want a little bit of the stabilizer and the inner hoop pushed through to the back. And now I'm going to just tighten it just a little more, and it should kind of be pretty taut, but not too tight. There's kind of a sweet spot for every hooping. And remember the logistics of tightening a hoop. When you screw this down more and tighten it more, it pulls this in and it pushes this out. So if you get it too tight, especially if you're hooping your fabric that you're going to be doing and you're not floating it will pucker when you're done. And you'll have to do it again, or not, depending. Okay, we're all hooped up. It's time now to, I'm going to cut off my fleece, a couple pieces of my purple cork, take my threads over, get threaded up. I'm going to be using, this is Thread Art thread. This is a 40 weight embroidery thread. I will be using 60 weight Invisifil polyester thread in my bobbin, and I'm going to use my black bobbin, not my yellow bobbin today, because this is going to get pretty thick. Time we get 2 layers of cork and the fleece in there. And let's see, I'm using my 26 foot and my single hole stitch plate, my 770 QE Bernina, and let's see, I think that's it. Okay, well, let's move over to the sewing machine and get this puppy going. So I'm at my machine, and I'm going to try to go through this really slowly, so that if you're new, if you've got a new machine, or maybe you've had your machine for a while and you've decided that you want to try some embroidery, I hope you'll be able to learn and follow along and be able to do something like this on your machine. And the first thing that, of course, I did was purchase my design, and I downloaded it to my laptop, and then I moved it. I downloaded the EXP file extension, and then I moved it to a USB stick, which is, I put it in the end of my machine where it's to the port where it's supposed to be. And it already says I have my 0mm stitch plate on, which you always want to have your 0mm stitch plate on if you're going to be doing embroidery. And you can see there's kind of a little white line around it. If I select that one, it has the white line. If I select that one, which is the one I have, that's the one I need. And I don't know if this will zoom in a little bit. Okay, so now let's go up here to my presser foot. So I have my 26 selected. It's got the white line around it. What if I said 15? The white line goes away. You have to select your stitch plate, and your presser foot must be selected in the machine. Even though you have on the right foot, and you know you do, and you have on the right stitch plate, and you know you do, your machine will not let you sew until you tell it that you have actually got them on. So if you're trying to sew and and you can't, and the machine won't go anywhere or do anything, and you come up with this little message up here that has a picture of your presser foot and your stitch plate, it's just telling you that you have skipped a step. And that buzz that you just heard, all of that is very normal. Those are systems checks that happen every time you turn your machine on for the first time. And I can't remember, but they might happen if you switch back and forth between regular sewing and embroidery. I did forget to mention that I have on a Oregon 7511 needle. I use Oregon needles all the time. You might need to use, like if you're going to use a Schmetz or a different brand of needle, you might need to use an 8014. But for Oregon, 7511 is just right. And so you see that my machine is already asking me a question. It wants to move my module arm. This does not look like the screen that will come up when it's asking you to attach your hoop. This has nothing to do with attaching the hoop. You see the hoop's going this way and it's going this way, and it wants to move the arm. See the arm moving? It wants to move the arm, so we'll tell it, okay, move. And I'm gonna put you down, and you can see the arm of my machine is going to move. And I'm going to just touch the little green check mark. And now we're coming into position. Now I'm going to put you back. And guess what this is? Now it wants me to pinch the little handles on the hoop connector, and the arrow's going down, so it wants me to pinch and put down. So let me get my hoop. I brought all my stuff with me over here. So here's my hoop. Let me see if I can zoom you back out so you can see a little bit. So I'm going to put my hoop on. And then my machine's going to ask me more questions. You'll hear a little beep. There it was. And now my hoop is connected. And now I'm getting another question from my machine. And we already talked about this just seconds ago. So what is this asking? It's moving this way, this way. What is it asking? Look what's happening to the arm on my module. It wants to move the arm. So again, I'm going to touch the green check mark. and it has moved my hoop to the position of the first stitch. And it's already pulled up my design because I did these yesterday, but let's say that I am doing this for the first time, and this is what my screen's going to look like. It's just going to show me some folders. These are the folders that are within the machine. This is my trash can, and this is a folder that has a little up arrow on it, so it'll let me see everything. And at the top you see that my little USB stick is black. Can you see that? If I touch it, I'm going to use my stylus. Whoa, maybe I won't. How far did it go? Just a minute, I'll get my stylus. Try not to drop it again. Here we go. Okay. To film these things, I have to sit clear away from my machine and reach, and I'm not very good at it, I'm afraid. So let's touch my USB. Well, let's see. Let's open up this one first. Oh boy, there's all our fonts. All kinds of fonts. Now let's see, how do we get back? Well, here's where we are, ABC. And here's a folder that has a little arrow going up. And what did we do? We touched an arrow going up on a folder to get to the main screen. Let's go back. And these are called backstepping or breadcrumbs. We just follow the breadcrumbs back, and there we are back. So let's touch the USB stick. And these are all the designs that I have moved from my computer to my USB stick, and you see that I have got a lot on there. Here's a little teddy bear which I put on a hooded towel, and wow, I want to go back. I'll just touch that, and here we go. Oh, we got some more things in here. Quilting designs and snowmen, and you should really only have 1 or 2 designs maybe on your USB stick. Your machine will be much happier. And I have always been really naughty about putting too many designs on my USB sticks. And so here I am, continuing with my problem. So here is my Halloween cup cozy. So let's check that. And you heard my module move as it went to the place of the first stitch. So it's in my oval hoop, which is what I'm going to stitch it in. But let's say your oval hoop was broken and you only have your you only have your maxi. It'll fit in the maxi hoop too. Or you only have your mega hoop. Oh, it'll fit in the mega hoop too. And the midi. Oh, it'll fit in the midi hoop. So you can stitch it out in different hoops as long as the hoop is big enough to handle the size of the design without going outside the boundaries of the stitch field. The stitch field is a different measurement than your hoop. The hoop might say it's 5 by 7, but the stitch field is actually less, a little less than that. So let's scoot back up here and put it back in my oval hoop. Alright. So we're back to the positioning of the first stitch. So let's close, and now we can see our screen. And if I were going to do any editing, what if I wanted to rotate my design? What if I wanted to resize it and make it a little bigger or a little smaller? Now is the time I would be doing that. And when I was all done editing, I would tell the machine, this is it. This is how I want it to stitch out. And then I would send it to the machine. I know it looks like it's already in the machine because we're looking at it on the screen. But all we're looking at is our ability to change it a little bit now before we actually tell the machine this is where we're stopping with our editing and where we're going to start with stitching. So let's say we're all done, we've done stuff to it and we're all done. We don't need to with this one, but let's say we did, just for fun. And we're ready to send it to the machine now to stitch out. We will touch the needle right here. And now we're ready to stitch out. We have our first step right here. And you'll hear my hoop move, but I'm going to advance through some of these steps just to show you. So here is step 2, step 3, step 4. This is where it's going to do the embroidery. And we'll move on through step 7 as we're going along. But let's go back to step 1. And step 1, you can kind of see there's a little purple outline around my design. I don't think I can get you any closer either. I wish I could. Oh, maybe I can. Okay, there's a little purple outline. Whoop. Around my design. So that's the highlighted part of the screen, and that's what's going to stitch first, is that line. And that is actually a placement stitch, and you can kind of see on my design everything else is grayed out. And as we move along through this project, you'll be able to see that the different parts of this design highlight as we come to the actual steps for those parts. So let's go ahead and do a little stitching. I have to find a piece of, just a scrap piece of extra stabilizer. When you are using just one layer of stabilizer and you don't have anything in the hoop for it to grab with the thread, it could tear the stabilizer, and it'll tear a little line right where the stitching goes. So I'm going to take, this is a little trick, a little tip. I'm going to take a, just a minute, something's on my hoop. There we go. A little scrap piece of tearaway, and I'm going to put it under the first inch or so, and I'm just going to put it right under my needle, because that's where it's going to start stitching. So I've got this little piece of tearaway. It's just a little scrap piece of tearaway, and I'm just going to raise my hoop up just enough to slide this under there. And this is called floating. You're floating a layer of stabilizer underneath. So I'm going to put it right there, and now I'm going to bring up my bobbin thread. Let me zoom you back out so you can see a little more. You guys are just zooming all over today. Okay, now I want to move you just a little bit. There we go. All right. So I've got, here's my top thread, and I want to bring my bobbin thread up. So I'm going to touch my needle up-down button and bring up my bobbin thread. And I don't ever put my fingers, when this green light is flashing, I don't ever put my fingers close to the needle. Something could go wrong. I could bump it, or I might touch it with my tweezers or my scissors, or just not thinking, you know, something could go wrong and a disaster could happen. So when you're doing embroidery, Don't ever put your fingers in the stitch field. From beginning to end, never put your fingers in the stitch field. And the stitch field is all this area where we're going to be working. So I'm using tweezers. I always use tweezers, and I just pull my bobbin thread up enough to grab it. And I'm pulling my bobbin thread through, and I have black in my bobbin. So can you see there are two threads? Here is my top thread, and here is my bobbin thread. So now I'm ready to stitch my placement line for the fleece. So the way that I know that it's time for the fleece is because I read my PDF. Remember, we talked about that. And to begin, load the design, hoop a layer of tearaway, then run the first machine step, which will be a placement stitch. Just so easy. So let's do that. And I'm not going to hold these threads very tight. Shape of my design, and I don't think you can see it because my camera is looking down, but going around my design up on my screen is a little icon that shows me right where the needle is stitching, and it's just moving along, kind of like your GPS on your iPhone. And we're just about to the beginning. Now I'm going to trim my threads a little, and I'm going to straighten this out. It's a little bumpy underneath here. There we go. And my PDF tells me put down my fleece, do step 2. And here on my machine, I'm ready for step 2. So I'm going to lay my fleece down over the placement line. I'm going to make sure that I'm covering all the line, and run step 2. And when you start your machine, when you're doing embroidery and you press the screen button, you press it gently and hold it. If you press it quickly, it won't go. So you have to press it and hold it just for, I don't know, half a second or something, and then you're good to go. So this is just going to stitch down my fleece. And step 3 is going to tell me, step 4 is going to tell me to trim the excess batting away. So let's do that. And I use a little pair of double curved applique scissors for that. And I have my thread cutter turned off, and I'll tell you why. I had my machine in for maintenance a couple of months ago, and I got a new cutter blade installed. I've had my machine for 4 years, and I sew every day, and my cutter blade, after 4 years of lots and lots and lots of sewing, needed to be replaced. It was dull. So we replaced the cutter blade that day. I have to take my hoop off so I can reach this side. And it needs a little bit of an adjustment. So I'm a couple hours from my dealer, and so the next time I go to the big city, I'm very rural where I live, and so the next time I go to the big city, I will take my machine up and have them do that little adjustment. But that's why I'm not using my thread cutter today. Okay, so I have my fleece trimmed all nice and pretty. Here's a spot I don't like, so I'll give that a haircut. Okay, there we go. We're looking good. I like it. So now, the next step, after we trim the fleece, see how easy this is? You just go down the steps. Next step, put on the cork or fabric, whatever you're using. I'm going to use this beautiful purple cork, and I'm going to make sure that I'm, just like I did with the fleece, make sure that I'm covering everything. And I'm not going to change my thread color yet. I am going to just go ahead and stitch this down. And each time we do a new step, my machine highlights the part that it's going to stitch on that step. So that's one way you can kind of tell where you're at when you're in the middle of something. And this just did, you saw it do this little jerky thingy. It's putting a little tick mark for the placement for the elastic. So you don't even have to guess with this design where the elastic goes. This is just so cool. Okay, we are ready to start stitching the actual design, and I'm going to trim my thread a little bit, and I'm going to change thread. And to do that, I'm pulling out of the thread out of my needle, and I'm going to trim it up top, right where it goes into my tension discs, and I'm pulling it out this way. And I do save my embroidery threads. But any trimmings of my embroidery threads, I save them. And then I do fun things with thread clippings. Maybe we'll do a tutorial on something like that someday. So here's my orange thread that I'm going to use to do my design. And I'm going to move the camera over a little bit, and I'm going to show you how I thread my thread. Some of us do not have a thread stand. I want one so bad, but I would probably spend my money more on hoops or something else, or fabric. So there's my spool of thread. It's just setting on my table in front of my machine. And I'm going to keep it on the right hand side of my little control knobs up here. And I brought it up and over the top of my machine, and I've put it through the little staple. There's a staple guide up here. Looks like a staple. I don't know what it's called, but that's what we call it. It's a staple. It is really for when you are using a double needle. Some other applications, and especially if you want to fill a bobbin and not unthread your machine. So that's its main design purpose, but of course as stitchers we have found, I don't know, a couple dozen other reasons to use it. I mean, it's there, you might as well use it, right? So my thread is through that staple, and now I'm just going to come over and thread my machine down through the tension discs like usual. And I don't do the floss thing. I have never done that. There is something about that that tells me that there would be trouble connected to it. I don't think, if we're not supposed to drag our thread back through, why would we floss a thread in there? I don't get that, so I don't do it. So there you have it. Spool of thread down here, up, through the staple, over, behind, down through my tension discs, and right out my needle. So now I'm going to zoom you back in just a little bit. Just a little. And we're ready to start stitching the design. Let me show you the screen first. Look how all that is highlighted on my screen. So now we're going to go down here and we're going to stitch this design out. I'm going to bring up my bobbin thread. Use my tweezers, just like normal. And hold my threads just a little bit. And remember, I don't have my thread cutter turned on, so I'll need to stop my machine and trim my threads. But here we go. We're going to start with the spider web up here. It's doing the spider web on this side. Now, another tip. If you are not supposed to put your fingers in the stitch field or near the needle, why would you put your scissors in there and try to clip a thread when the hoop is moving? Stop the machine. Takes 1 second. Trim your threads. Start your machine. Everybody's safe. Your machine isn't broken and torn to pieces. You're doing fine. So this, on my screen, this tells me that I have 32 minutes left to stitch out this design. So you're not going to want to watch it this whole time, but before I go off camera and then come back when it's about finished, I want to show you a little bit about the speed control. Here is the speed control. If I move it toward the right, the plus, my stitching will go a little faster. I can also use the bunny rabbit on my screen, which, I mean, I feel like I can embroider almost anything, and in 4 years I have never used the bunny rabbit. I don't see why anybody would need to go that fast. If you don't get in a big hurry, everything you do will turn out much better. Your machine will work better. No heat buildup. Your thread comes off just fine. Your bobbin thread unwinds just fine. I wouldn't try to do anything fast. These are not industrial machines. These are domestic machines, and they are very powerful machines. So I have my speed dial at just below the halfway mark, and that's where I usually leave it. Some designs will stitch out very fast, and I mean the machine will go real fast, and I can't change it. Sometimes the digitizer will embed a speed, a certain speed in their design, and you can't change it. It might go slower than you like, and you can't speed it up. And also, something that not very many people know or understand about embroidering on a Bernina machine is that the larger the hoop, the slower the machine will stitch. And you can't speed it up. It's to keep the machine safe. It's to keep you safe and your project to turn out like you want it to and be successful. If you watch your arm move, you can see all this movement in the arm, and just think, if that had a great big hoop on there and it was trying to move that fast. There are mechanisms inside this arm that are kind of like belts, Y and Z belts, and they have to be able to move smoothly and accurately, and with a great big hoop they can't do that. So when you get up to the midi hoop, or especially the jumbo hoop, the machine is just going to stitch slow, and it won't let you go any faster, and that's a very good thing. So we're doing the spider web on the other side now. This made me a little spider down here, a cute little spider. I see it's stitching over a thread, so I'm going to stop it and find my scissors, and I'm going to clip this thread because I don't want it to sew it down or snag it. So I'm going to see if I can get it out of here. You know, the needle will go right through. It'll pierce thread. I don't know how it does it, but it does. And while I'm stopped, I'll just trim these two. And I think we'll go ahead and go off camera and finish up, and then I'll be back and I'll show you my little trick to go backwards so that we don't have to do any turning on this little project. Okay, my design just finished, and it has moved the needle over to this edge. So I am going to snip my thread, and I'm going to take this off the machine and get rid of my extra starting tearaway that I used. And now I'm going to show you a little trick so that you don't have to go all the way through the end of the design and end up with something that you have to turn right side out. But if you are using like quilting cotton or some other type of fabric that has, let's say, a raw edge, you know, that you're going to want to take care of, you could definitely go ahead and turn it right side out. If you don't have a heavy fabric like cork, you could go ahead and finish out the design just the way it is. So I've got, I have got all this fold over elastic, which I got from somewhere on Amazon. I know I got it off Amazon, so I will link this in the description box for you. But I've got a couple colors. I kind of like that one. And there was a really light lavender one that I dropped all over the floor. But I think this one will be the best anyway. So I think these are all one. This package is just an assortment of colors that they're all 1 yard. So they work for the composition notebooks and all those things that we do for in the hoop projects. So I need 4 inches. That's what the pattern tells me, is that I need 4 inches, and I'm going to knead it twice because I have 2 places for my elastic. So I will do this, cheat, and cut it off. And now I've got enough elastic. And remember when I told you that my machine did the little tick marks for where to put the elastic, so it just makes it so easy. So I am going to fold them over and lay them up here, because for some reason the little things like to run off. I had the black on one of the black ones and I couldn't find it. I had to cut 3. So, okay, here's the back to my little cup cozy, and now we're going to work on the back. So here are my tick marks right here for my, can you see them? My little tick marks for my elastic. So I'm going to lay my fold over elastic right between those tick marks and about 1/4 of an inch in. If you're doing the turn the right side out version, you're going to put your elastic on this side and it won't be sticking out, it will be sticking in like this. And then you'll put the backing on top and it will stitch all the way around it. But since I'm kind of cheating, I'm going to put mine on the back so that I can see. I've got to put this up here where I got to have a couple free hands here. I'm not sitting, like I mentioned before, I'm not sitting straight on at my machine. You are. I'm kind of off to the side. Okay, so there's my elastic, and I'm just going to use Scotch tape, and I'm going to tape them down. Let's see, I want this out just a little farther. Kind of like so. And this one. Kind of like so. So there's my elastic taped on. And now I'm going to put my back on, and I'm just going to do just like I did when I did the front. I'm just going to make sure that all of my stitching lines are covered, that, you know, I'm well on there. And I'm going to tape it down. And then, remember when we first started our design and we did the placement stitch? And then we stitched down the fleece. Those are the 2 steps I'm going to use to secure my back on here. And on one of the other ones that I did tear away the stabilizer behind here, but I didn't like the way it turned out at all. So I don't think that's a good idea. But I did want to tell you that I tried it. You know, being adventurous that's how it is. I'm going to put a little more tape right here. You can never have enough tape, and this is just Scotch tape, so no big deal. Alright, I'm going to put my hoop back on my machine, and I'm going to, why do I have orange thread coming out of my bobbin hole? Let me see here, what's going on? It's stuck in my thread cutter. There we go. Alright, now we're back to square one. Okay, so I've got to switch threads because I want my outside lines to be this lavender color. So here we go. Pull my thread out of my needle, cut it up here, pull it down through, and save it. I save all my embroidery thread. It's kind of expensive and I don't want to throw it away. And there's so many fun things you can do with thread scraps. So now I'm going to go ahead and thread up my lavender thread, and I'm going to do it exactly the same way that I showed you how I did the orange thread. No flossing, I don't do that. I don't think that's a good idea. Alright, so I'm going to use my tweezers because I don't want to get my fingers around my needle because my green button's flashing. So now, the fun part here, I'm going to go down this next step. I can see that it's highlighted on my screen. It's just going to tack down the elastic, and we do kind of need some extra security on that elastic. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my bobbin thread up and do this. It's only going to stitch this one end here, and then it'll go all the way to the other end of the cup cozy. So I'm just going to stitch down my elastic. Now we're going to go back. Okay, so that's just one extra little security line of stitching for my elastic. So now, let me get you up here so you can see the screen. Pull you in a little bit. And you can see that I'm on step 6. So I don't want to go any further. I want to go back. So I'm going to go back to step 1, I think, maybe. Okay, step 1, here we go. And I'm going to pull up my thread, and I'm going to just feel under here and just carefully make sure that nothing is caught. I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread. Let me see. Scooch it back out so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and run you down just a skosh. There we go. All right, pull up my bobbin thread. I just did my needle up, down button. And I have both my threads here. And I'm not going to hold them too tight, but I am going to just kind of hang on. And we're going to go all the way around. Stop, trim, and go. And this is going to go all the way around on top of this very same stitching, which makes it just a little bit darker lavender, which is really cool. And when step 2 comes up, we'll go around again and then we'll be done. And we'll go back over to my workstation and cut it out. Okay, last step. And I heard it cut the thread, so it cut the bobbin thread. So I'm going to pull my bobbin thread up again. That way I don't get a thread nest on the back. So we'll do that again. Come on, baby. Come on, little baby. Sometimes you have to just talk sweet to them. Okay, here we go. Last round, and then we're done. And this one will be just a skosh inside this one, so it makes a little double, almost like a double needle stitching on there. It's really cool. Looks like a saddle stitching. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're all done. So we're going to go back over to my workstation and cut it out. Alrighty, we're back over to the workstation, and I'm going to take it out of the hoop, loosening my hoop screw, and put my hoop back together and put it away. Okay. Now, since we use tearaway stabilizer, we can tear out, and this is kind of what I like to do, is tear out before I cut it out. I want to tear as much of this stabilizer out of here as I can. And it works so good if you can just get it started right along the seam. It'll come out right by the stitches because we went around there twice. But if you need to, you can use tweezers. Take my tape off here. There we go. Okay. I think I got most of it. I don't want to leave too much because I don't want any white to show. So you got to get it. There we go. Lost my battery, but I think we're back now. So the tape comes off really easy, even if you stitched over it. And you can take your tweezers and get it if you need to. Can never use enough tape on projects like this, I don't think. Okay, now we're ready to cut it out. Let me trim a couple threads. We've got a thread here, and a thread here. Otherwise, then the back looks just beautiful. You can see there's nothing on the back. I got some tape I'll have to take off. Well, I'll get it. There's my elastic sticking out. Okay, now something you have to really be careful is not to cut off your elastic. I haven't done that, but I have seen some other tutorials on on YouTube where that happened. So you want to be careful not to cut your elastic off. That's super important. So I'm going to cut everything off but this end, and I'll cut this end off last because that's where my elastic is. So I'm going to try to zoom you in so you can see how I cut this. And I'm using curved scissors. I suppose that some people can get along good with straight scissors, but I don't. On a deal like this, I don't. So I'm going to cut 1/8 of an inch away from the outside line of stitching. There's that. Now look how nice it looks. And now I'm going to cut across here, across the bottom, but not the end with my elastic. I don't want to cut off my elastic. So 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to trim all along here. And I'm just running my curved edge of my scissors parallel to the stitches. And I don't have any choppy looking cuts, and everything just looks great. Okay, now I'm going to cut this top. This is a little bit tricky getting around the bumps over the back, but we can do it. You could do this even if you're a beginner. Make up a bunch of these. Go to your quilt shop, get some cork, and make up a bunch of these. And start you a little Etsy shop and sell them and make a little extra Christmas money. Make some money so you can buy some more fabric. Or more feet. More hoops. Another machine someday. So here we go. I've just about got this off. And it just goes so smooth and easy. If you need to, you can come back in and trim a little. And see how pointy these corners are? On all of them that I've made, I've taken the tip off. I just did. I don't know why, but I do. Alright, here we go. So now I'm going to cut off the ends where the elastic is. And I'm just going to fold it back and cut. I can just kind of feel my scissors along the edge. And if I need to clean it up a little, I can. There we go. And we'll do the same thing on the back. Fold it back. Trim. If I need to clean it up, I can. And all that's left now is to sew on a couple of buttons. And while this was stitching out, I went through my button jar. Everybody's got a button jar, right? And I went through my button jar and I found a couple of buttons that I think will look pretty cute on here. And so I'm gonna sew those on, and there we go. A cute little coffee cozy that you can put around a jar of jelly or a jar of candy or anything, and have fun with it. Okay, hope you have a good day. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer as soon as I can. Bye.